De-dollarization is coming. Politicians in the US are already freaking out about the prospect that they won't be able to punish other countries using the supremacy of the dollar.
Brazil, in our hemisphere, largest country in the Western Hemisphere south of us, cut a trade deal with China. They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States. We won't have to talk about sanctions in 5 years because there'll be so many countries transacting in currencies other than the dollar that we won't have the ability to sanction them.
You've probably heard people say de-dollarization will be the beginning of the end for US hegemony and bring about an entirely new global financial system that replaces the dollar. And as crazy as that might sound, it's not only likely, but there are already dozens of countries working to make this a reality. To understand why the dollar's dominance could be ending, first we need to understand how it became so dominant to begin with. For over 100 years, the British Empire imposed an international financial system where the British pound functioned as the world reserve currency. A world reserve currency is used as the standard in all international trade and is usually the currency of the dominant power of the time. Controlling the world reserve currency conferred huge privileges to the British, but this changed during World War II. During the war, Britain had to let most of its colonies go because it had to dedicate all of its resources to fighting the war. Britain itself was also relentlessly bombed during the war, and most of its cities and factories were destroyed. In fact, basically every country involved in the war was seriously set back. Every country except the United States. The US mainland was never attacked, and it spent most of the war building up its industrial capacity. The United States not only emerged from the war intact, but also the sole capitalist superpower. The United States used the crisis of the war to recreate a new world financial system in what was called the Bretton Woods Agreement. According to the agreement, the dollar would be the new world reserve currency. This gave the US tremendous financial power because all of a sudden, everyone needed the US's currency to buy and sell things, making the dollar the most needed and sought after currency in the world. It was agreed that the dollar would be exchangeable for gold at a rate of $35 per ounce. In theory, this prevented the US from just printing money because the US would have to keep enough gold on hand to honor the exchange rate, and gold can't be printed. However, when it came down to it, the US broke its promise anyway. In the 1960s, it became clear that the US was printing way more dollars than it actually had in gold. French President Charles de Gaulle said the following: "The fact that many countries accept as principle the dollar as good as gold leads Americans to get into debt, and to get into debt for free at the expense of other countries. Because what the US owes them, it is paid at least in part with dollars they are the only ones allowed to emit." As the US entered an inflationary crisis, countries started to demand their gold back. In order to stop the bleeding, the Nixon administration suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold in 1971. The US kept the gold and left the rest of the world holding dollars. In order to keep the world beholden to the dollar, the US negotiated a secret deal with the Saudi monarchy in 1973, where the US would offer Saudi Arabia military protection, and in return, Saudi Arabia would only sell its oil in dollars. Since oil is the most traded commodity in the world, requiring the dollar for oil purchases essentially made the dollar a prerequisite for international trade. Economist Barry Eichengreen sums up just how beneficial this arrangement really was. Quote, "It costs only a few cents for the Bureau of Engraving and Printing to produce a $100 bill. But other countries have to pony up $100 of actual goods and services in order to obtain one." The other aspect of this is, since the entire world financial system is based around institutions created by the US uses this to punish countries it doesn't like. For example, the US controls SWIFT, the digital payment system that's akin to the blood vessels of the world financial system. The US has unilaterally banned countries like Cuba, Iran, and North Korea from SWIFT, essentially forbidding them from conducting international trade. The US also
Welcome to another episode of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, man?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? It's great to be back. We have another edition of Nick and CJ for you guys today. I had to jump on today. There's a lot to discuss. We got a lot of great content coming your way. Obviously, JV and Savvy shows later today. Also, Phil Rella Isabel from the Combo Couch will be joining me tomorrow at noon. It's a great time.
Nice.
Always like cooking up with Phil Rella and we always talk about Brazilian politics and Lula. Now is a great time. I can't wait to see her take on Lula's very revolutionary speech that he gave, pretty much declaring war on the dollar hegemony, and that's what we're gonna cover here very soon.
Right.
And you know, you want to know why I know this, CJ? Where are the social democrats who, when Lula was elected, they was like, Lula was homie. We love Lula. You're not following the story. They're not covering the story. Where's all the AOC people retweeting Lula? Like, hey, look what Lula say about the United States hegemony. Look at what Lula says about NATO and Ukraine. No, none of that. These people barely know who Lula is, but Lula got elected and used that as an opportunity. Like, hey, he's on our side. He's our guy. No, he's completely rebuking the foreign policy that you guys support. He completely. Go ahead, CJ.
And that's the reason why I wanted to start off with that clip, because I wanted to clip to it kind of encompass a lot of the shit we got to talk about, which is basically it's about U.S. hegemony, imperialism. You got Zelensky stealing money from NATO and Ukraine. You got what's happening with Lula that's going out in China, and what's happening with the de-dollarization everywhere. It's just in Saudi. We didn't even get. There's so many people don't understand how many stories we didn't get to. We just kind of briefly just mentioned the Yemen Saudi talks. Like, we didn't really even go in depth with that, and that's another one we may later in another stream get to. But this is it's a lot happening, all centered around Nick, U.S. hegemony, and
that's why I can't help but notice. I can't help but notice that everyone who is on the side of U.S. hegemony in the media, and I'm not only talking about corporate media, I'm talking about progressive left as well, independent right-wing media, right? Like, they are trying to do everything they can to focus and talk about everything except the most important shit that's going on, the craziest shit, the craziest shit in geopolitics in decades, and they talk about nonsense. If we go MSNBC, it's 24/7 Trump trial coverage. Click at TYT and their channel. Look at the buffoonery you see there. And they do everything they can not to look at this giant geopolitical happening that completely rebukes their politics.
And that goes for independent media too, because, or especially I should say, because I know that you were talking about them too, but especially because look at what's happening with the Bernie industrial complex. Instead of them covering stuff like this, what's happening? They're imploding.
Not at all.
The Bernie industrial complex.
Let's see something.
Jake Huger went ahead and cut the umbilical cord to all these people the other day, and actually made an announcement to his own supporters. Like, if you want to basically unsubscribe, like paying supporters, like, it's crazy. But anyway,
whenever I see like my bad, but whenever I see the whenever I see the leftist mafia and their cliques, it's always just culture war shit. That's like all they cover. Why this massive, and I'm not saying fighting for your rights is not important. But then you got all this stuff going on. They are avoiding that. Look at this deeply serious journalist here. See, I didn't look at this, but this is the Rational National. All this shit going on right now.
Oh no!
Nothing but red blue shit. Look, you got the TYT drama, which is funny. The Ben Shapiro video, Marjorie Taylor Greene, red blue Tennessee GOP, red blue Wisconsin, red blue New Yorkers, Marjorie Taylor Greene. And this is at the 10-day mark here. Like, this 10-day mark at this point.
Yeah, he has been significantly doing less video. There's not enough content for them to do. He can't cover the squad.
Fam, look at this. Remember that Jamal Bowman video we fucking clowned? Look, Jamal Bowman goes off on heartless Republicans.
It's such a different take. It's such a different take. It is.
Bro, we roasted this man for that WWE Pro Wrestling performance. But David Joe on his channel, he slayed it. He destroyed the heartless Republicans. I just look at it. 2 weeks in, Trump, DeSantis. Look, Maxwell Frost. He doing prop videos on Maxwell fucking Frost. The guy who voted to keep. You guys know that Maxwell Frost voted to keep Syrian sanctions. Yes. Like, he immediately came out the gate the worst, guys. Like, I know AOC get a lot of attention. I think Jamal Bowman was the worst out of them, but I think Maxwell Frost is immediately
close.
Coming out hot. But sorry, I keep cutting y'all. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. What I was gonna say, it actually does. I mean, we're not tooting our own horn, just to say it speaks to the need. It speaks to the need. How none of us was really thinking about being on here trying to, combat all of the propaganda. But it speaks to the needs of RBN. If we weren't here, David Sirota, Marianne Williamson would be the gems of the progressive movement, and we would all be backing Marianne Williamson and supporting Ukraine. Like, this is what we'll be having. It'll all be culture war stuff because they wouldn't be able to report on the squad, and we would just be silent. Like it would be such a different tapestry on the left. Go ahead.
You guys realize in 1 month, my man did one labor video. 1 month. I just skimmed through. 1 month, I give him props on one video. The Rucker strike, he covered the Rucker strike. It's a good job right here. Right here, that's a good video. If you go down for a month, that's the only video that has substance to me. Rest of it is Ron DeSantis nosedives, Bernie Sanders, hammer Moderna. You see the manufacturing thing. You're not going to show the horrible shit, Bernie. Like Bernie video, Jamal Bowman video, Proud Boy, fear mongering video. Like there's only one labor video in 1 month. But my point being, they're not covering no videos on China, no foreign policy videos at all. There, you got this giant. What's happening right now is going to be a giant shift in a way in America's quality of life. Like this is a giant shift in geopolitics. You had Lula. I'll pull this article up. This is just our intro. We just had.
We're still in the intro. Don't worry, everybody.
And look, Brazil's Lula calls for the end to dollar trade dominance. Ooh. Now this is like follow-up story number 7 for me. Like how many Lula stories have I covered with him being China? Like these are like follow-up stories. They're like a chain. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do a follow-up story on this subject. So I cover. Look at David Doe's channel. Not one goddamn story on Lula. Now, I bet you when Lula won, that he was, oh my God, Lula, I'm hip and cool, kids. I know who Lula is. But this is significant. Just talking about now, getting to the substance, because I think that there's an important distinction between us, and that's why it drives me crazy when people are like left. We call these people out. They're like, why are you doing left infighting? The fuck you talking about? My thing is I call out liberals. These people are liberals.
Right. Left infighting is what you see what's going on with Jank and all of them right now. That's left infight. I'm sorry, that's liberal infighting.
Yeah, liberal infighting.
When it's between us and them, that's not infighting. We are clearly not the same. But let me bring this video back up because he makes another point I want you to comment on, Nick, specifically. Listen to this next part here.
Also leverages foreign countries' stockpiles of US dollars against them.
Oh, I wanted us to kind of zero in in this introduction on how we leverage the fact that we are the world currency. Now, if China is the world currency, ask yourself what they leverage the world this way. So let's
For example, the US controls SWIFT, the digital payment system that's akin to the blood vessels of the world financial system. The US has unilaterally banned countries like Cuba, Iran, and North Korea from SWIFT, essentially forbidding them from conducting international trade. The US also leverages foreign countries' stockpiles of US dollars against them. For example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the US froze over $600 billion of gold in foreign reserves held in US and EU banks, making Russia unable to pay its foreign debts. Regardless of how you feel about Russia, US control over the world financial system allows the US to intervene in any conflict on Earth and financially ruin the side they oppose. This is the
You tell me how that's like not like a racketeering. How is there not being brung up on RICO charges? Like this is like an organized crime organization that's operating as such and inflicting pain on their enemies, their opposite, their opposing gang members. Yes. This is just like an organized crime organization.
That's why it never makes sense to me. And CJ, how many panels have I done when I have my old International Leftist Coalition series about sanctions? It never makes sense to me that people would ignore sanctions. Like, for example, people will say stuff like Trump never started any more wars. Okay, kind of sanctioned the shit out of Venezuelans, though, right? He waged economic war. He was wanting to engage in trade war with China, like the economic war and sanctions. And when you look at what he did on Iran, the hardline policy on Iran, sanction on Iran, to me, I view that as no different than hot war. No different. I understand it's different in terms of logistics, but in terms of pain and suffering, in terms of malicious intent, like these countries are sanctioned because they don't think they can get away with invasions. So the United States found a way.
In some ways, isn't sanctions, and follow me down this line of thinking, isn't sanctions worse? Because sanctions is able to affect more people who's not involved in a military action, whereas a military action, you're fighting against their other military. Yes, you're killing some civilians. We know they do that, but you're essentially trying to target, that's what they say, military operations, military targets. That's what you're trying to do. Whereas sanctions is intentionally skipping past all the rich people who's causing the problems, who they want to get out, going to the people, people who has not involved. So to me, sanctions is almost, it's starving. How else do you kill kids unless it's through sanctions? You get what I'm saying? You can kill way more kids through sanctions than warfare. Go ahead.
To your point, it makes your point even stronger when you realize that John Bolton and Donald Trump literally released a memo bragging about how their sanctions brought the Venezuelan economy to their knees. And when you had John Kirby, you got all these Barack Obama officials, and this is what really made me hate Barack Obama when I heard about their strategy. They purposely engage in sanctions, not with the strategy. Their public position is we gonna have targeted sanctions that go after the oligarchs. But they know in their memos, their strategy, Trump wrote about it as well. Their plan is to inflict harm on the people, and then once the people get upset about the sanctions, they will overthrow the leader. Now, the reason why these sanctions are completely ineffective, not only just brutal, is because sanctions tend to rally people around the leader. Do you guys know, despite Western media, the Venezuelan people rallied behind Nicolas Maduro because they knew what the United States was doing to him. When you had in Yemen, we had the Houthis, when they was being sanctioned, when they took large amount of territories, the plan the Saudi regime had was to make the people rise up against the Houthis. But when the sanctions hit, the people are smarter than they think. So they see the outside Saudi Western forces sanctioning and starving them. And yeah, they may not be a big fan of the Houthis, but they kind of like, fuck those people. And that's just two examples. And this has been proven over and over again. Sanctions are not even effective. It's meant to bring a population to the knees so they can overthrow the leaders. So to your point, in terms of intent, like, at least with war, then you can pretend you're not going after civilians.
Right.
But with sanctions, that's literally the strategy. When we had Aaron Monte on quite a bit ago, I asked him about this, and he put back slightly where he say he thinks hot war is worse, just because if you look at the Iraq war most recently in the death count. But he also says it's a point well taken that we got to view both as war, and that's what I do. I don't separate. You invaded a country, you waging sanctions. No, it's two different strategies of war. And that's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, and to his point about it being like, what the point that I'm making, that it can be worse, is because it has the ability to affect more people. But I do see the point that that's what I was getting to. Like, I do see the point that warfare does, the carnage to the country and otherwise to the system, the infrastructure, all of that type of stuff on top. And what I love about these clips from Breakthrough is they add these history videos and just points in their video. So listen to this last historical point, and then we'll go ahead and get to some announcements and get to our first topic here.
About Russia, U.S. control over the world financial system allows the U.S. to intervene in any conflict on Earth and financially ruin the side they oppose. This is the complete opposite of the free trade and political neutrality the U.S. promised when it built this globalized financial architecture. This arrangement is obviously incredibly beneficial to the U.S. elites, but there's only one problem. The system only works if the rest of the world, especially oil-bearing states, continue to use the dollar. This came up, for instance, with Muammar Gaddafi, who just 2 years prior to the US-led carpet bombing of Libya, proposed the creation of a single gold-backed African currency called the dinar. An email leaked by...
Now we understand why this person is dead. He's essentially was asking or trying to do what BRICS is doing now. But he was, think of it just with his country, just with Africa. He's trying to create a currency, and he's like, oh no, that's not happening. That's not happening, sir. How many times has this happened where somebody is talking about trying to create some sort of system outside, and then all of a sudden there's some sort of coup, there's some sort of murder, there's some sort of assassination, which is terrible. This is why it speaks to the point, and we can end the video here. It speaks to the point, Nick, that it is such an unserious sell to say the people that's willing to murder people like Gaddafi, murder 500,000 Iraqi kids and say it's worth it is really ridiculous to say, oh, then we can vote. We can vote some Medicare. We can vote some change. It's such a ridiculous concept to say a person who would inflict that type of pain on another human is just going to be smoothed, like cozy up and be made to make the right decisions. It's unreal.
If any of you guys are doubting us here, you had 500,000 Iraqis who died because of sanctions in Iraq. Then when Madeleine Albright was asked whether that was worth it or not, she said yes, it was worth it. Starving, killing 500,000 Iraqi children. But ICC want to put war crimes on Putin for adopting kids whose parents was killed by the Kiev regime.
Just unserious, man.
And it's this weaponization of hypocrisy is dangerous. Like if you had a pristine ass record, clean ass country, and you was putting these war crime charges on Putin, what could I really say? Like, you know what I mean? I don't have any interest in defending him. I told you guys we got a common enemy, but what can I really say? But as someone who lived in the heart of the empire, the biggest criminals of my lifetime, my boss level kill counts way more. But we supposed to sit here and allow these people to weaponize hypocrisy? The people who do are the biggest cowards in politics, in my opinion. But CJ, I'll pass to you. We can do some announcements, and I know you got a story.
Yeah. So
I got super chat. I can read super chat.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
I thought earlier. Sean, thanks for $2. How would you do your job without a Schroeder, PMC superiors? That's why I know that's why I know it's sarcasm to that last part. At first I felt some sort of way about that, but I'm sure that last part I know it's sarcasm. So you got the whole hood laughing, Sean.
Yeah, because it's like we do our job every single day and we do not use his reporting. It's amazing how we're able to do our job. But anyway, we don't want to, dog pile on there. But yeah, it was funny. But we got 260 people here. Let's get 250 likes going. Thank you for joining us. There's a ton of topics, and that's the next thing I want to do is show you the graphic and the topics. So get us to 250, but here is the graphic here. The main story, maybe I'll think, well, let's do it at third as our third story. The main story or the graphic story, Zelensky and his comrades, his friends, his oligarch friends, embezzling $400 million last year alone. Seymour Hertz report. So that is the main story we will be covering, and then. But what I want to start with after the announcements is the Jon Stewart, because it's kind of a quick video. Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks loses composure with Jon Stewart. We'll probably start with that one. And then go into the Zelensky embezzles $400 million. And then I'll switch it and make Lula the third, because Lula goes to China. Those may be the only three we're able to get to be honest, because they're kind of long. But if we're able to also cover Trump talks about the Nord Stream pipeline explosion, and then a couple of stories we haven't been able to get to, we'll try to squeeze in, like Nick mentioned earlier. But to continue with our announcements, here is our Substack. Let us know or join our Substack if you want to know when we go live or when we drop clips. Join our Substack. Also, we just crossed over 32,500. Thank you for those that just joined. Welcome all new subscribers. Make sure, if you're a longtime subscriber, always check to make sure you're still subscribed, because YouTube unsubscribes people all the time. Here is our membership and our website. I didn't give out our email in a while, so here's our email, info@revblack.com. Scrolling down below, you'll see our labor fundraiser. And unless there's any other super chats, I don't see any. So I think we can get into the first story. I do want to kind of warm up before, because I feel like Lula is the main story, really, even though it's not the thumbnail. So I want to warm up to that story. So let's start with the. Let's start with the. Where did I put that at? Let's start with these I don't have a name tag for it, but we will start with the Jon Stewart, and I have the graphic up here.
This should be fun.
Yeah, this was now. So Jon Stewart, the last time we covered him, or the last time I think you did the segment on this or a whole stream, is when he was interviewing, I think Hillary Clinton and Condoleezza Rice, and it was like it blew up. It kind of went for us. It kind of went viral.
Jon Stewart be on some shit shit, man. Yeah, I'm telling you. And there was another interview that I had in my notes I didn't end up covering. I saw some cringe interview where he was talking about democracy and Trump and all this shit. It was horrible, but extremely hit or miss. Every once in a while, Jon Stewart put his head on right. He's an extremely confusing person. But it's very simple when, like, I'm a Marxist. I think it's class interest always get in the way. But this video is an example of him doing really good. So I'll pass it to you, CJ.
Yeah, maybe he heard the backlash from the other, and he's like, "Oh man, I gotta come out and do something." Maybe that's the case. But this is a C-SPAN video, so this one should be good. I think this is public domain. So let's listen. You can let me know when you want to stop it. There is quite a couple of times we will be stopping it here.
Do you feel like these are unfair questions of somebody within a department of that size and scope?
I think you have a particular thing you really want to talk about and you're asking me other questions, but I don't think it's unfair to ask me about the audit. It's absolutely the case that the United States military should be able to pass an audit, and we've got to be on that pathway to get there.
Why is it a pathway? Why can't you just get there the next audit?
And you'll notice throughout the video, she's gonna be like super dismissive over the fact that they can't pass the audit. And I'm asking you guys, chat, let me know. Which one of you guys got a job where you can fail your main audit every goddamn year? My last job I had for a while, I sold cars. Nigga, if we got below like 90% in our surveys, they would dock our pay. If you get below like 70%, one deal survey was like, you get fired. Meanwhile, Pentagon failing shit every goddamn year. No consequences for the ruling class. How many of you guys got jobs where you can just regularly fail? Regularly getting orders wrong. Imagine you're a construction worker, you just fuck a building up. Oops, my bad. On to the next
sorry.
That's the Pentagon. And she's going to just blow it off. But I'll pass to you, CJ.
That's so funny. All right, so let's continue.
But don't you think that does speak to the larger point that we're trying to get at, which is good journalism uncovers corruption? And
okay, good journalism does uncover corruption, but I'm not sure these two things are linked. And
wait, you see how she's offended? Like, wait. This is not part of the propaganda game here. What? Truth? What are you saying? That's
she saw the Hillary Clinton interview. I thought it was safe. I saw the other videos. I thought it was safe. What is going on here? He be catching people off guard, bro.
Yeah,
because sometimes they be safe and then sometimes they're not. But let's continue.
Maybe I don't know if he feels safe because it's C-SPAN. I don't know if that's the case, and it's not like a well-known big name political person. So it's like Hillary and Clinton, he's like, man, he's maybe kowtowing to them.
And also that was his show too. That was his show too. So maybe it was like harder because you want to keep your access.
He has his advertisers.
You don't want that big a fight on your show. But if you're on C-SPAN, this not your show. Now I think about it, like you go on C-SPAN, like y'all might build this motherfucker. Now I'm here, not your show. Yeah. You know what I mean? Unless I'm wrong, I'm assuming it's C-SPAN, right? But go ahead, CJ.
This is C-SPAN. Yeah, this is C-SPAN clip. Yeah, I got it. This is from their YouTube page. I got it from. All right, so let's continue.
An audit is not.
But they are.
Okay, so you need to explain to me. Do you understand what an audit does and the degree to which it is linked to the question that you're asking?
I believe so.
Is this woman-splaining? Nick? Is that what she's doing? Or better yet, is this State Department splaining? Like, that's a better way to put this. Because do you even know what an audit is? Apparently, you don't. You can't pass one. Apparently, the State Department
nigga, in my job, when you fail an audit, you are fucked. That's what I know. Can you explain what's different about your reality where you can fail an audit and say everything? What she's like, you don't understand what audit? What are you talking about? All my jobs I ever had, I used to work for Kansas City Gas as well. I used to inspect pipelines. If I miss a gas leak, son, we was fucked. What were you talking about? Can you explain what an audit means to you? Is it something that you can just optionally fail? An audit is a fun procedure event. Like, what are you talking about, ma'am?
Right. I mean, and to put it in more layman's terms, failing an audit is like being a cashier and your till coming up short. You starting out with $100. They like, here's $100, and you come back with $98, and you don't have an explanation for where the other $8 is. It's like, here you go. What do you mean, explanation?
Imagine management called you out. Imagine management called you out for $250 mission the cashier. You're like, man, do you even know what an audit is? Do you even know what you're talking about? You understand what it means to be a cashier? You know how much money I get every day? Okay. Can you even imagine having that kind of attitude when you called out? That's how I see it, guys.
Yeah, that is funny. All right, let's continue.
So,
okay, go ahead. Give me your explanation.
No, I don't mind learning. So what I would suggest is that the audit that they have in the military doesn't really look at whether or not there's efficacy. It's just whether they got delivered the thing that they ordered. And that
is any audit. That is any audit. That is true.
But generally, those audits aren't $400 billion for Raytheon and $1.7 trillion for a plane that doesn't seem to be doing. Like, there is a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's.
They are if you're failing. They are if you're failing them. They are. If you fail an audit, that is literally. I mean. If you fail an audit, what does that mean then? If it doesn't mean there's something wrong here, and if you can't explain it, that equals fraud.
I love how
her abuse. Go ahead.
I love how her pushback. You guys want to know her pushback to Jon Stewart's good pushback? That's how it's done, David Schroeder. Was come on, man. Why you bring up our waste, fraud, and abuse? We talking about something else. We talking about our failed audits. Stop bringing up our other failure. How is that a counter argument to what Jon Stewart is saying? She said, well. Us being wasteful, us wasting taxpayer money, they're not the same as failing an audit. Gotcha. Like, what?
You're doing both, and you're trying to say gotcha.
Because she didn't deny it. Notice she didn't deny it. She didn't say there's no waste, fraud, and corruption. She just said, oh, why you bring this other thing that we do?
Let's go.
Then please educate me on
sure. So an audit is exactly what you just described,
yes.
Which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit, or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit, is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false.
What?
My inability as a cashier to account for this $250 that is not indication of waste, fraud, and abuse, sir.
Really?
What? This shit would not work.
Try telling those capitalists that fire all the cashiers whose tills are come up short. When I've been a cashier in many different settings, from a movie theater to Home Depot to McDonald's. I've been in many different settings, and I'm telling you, your cash register come up short, right up, come up again, and you gone. And that's if it's below a certain amount. If it's hit a certain amount, like $10, you gone. $10. The company's making billions, and my till is short $10. I'm gone. But you're short billions of dollars, and it's what do you mean? That doesn't tell us it's waste, fraud, and abuse. What do you mean? It's so silly. Let's continue.
False, right there. So
what is
now it's a question of, it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where.
Why is that?
That is not the.
Like, that's the obvious question, right? But I think Jon Stewart has a good follow-up here as well.
Oh, he does. So let's listen.
We can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world, that's waste.
How is that waste?
Exactly. If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think?
This dynamic here, so for me, it's like just patterns of behavior. There was a complete power dynamic shift with this particular question, where she began to laugh and sit back because she doesn't have a response to, I give you this and you can't tell me what it is. Like layman terms. He is putting this in layman's terms, which is harder to argue. Like what we do. Like, you're a cashier. It's harder to argue against that with this circular logic that they try to do. and you can see the power shift in the body language. I'm just going to rewind it she was on an attack. What do you mean? What do you mean? Audit. Then he says, it's wasteful if you can't tell me I give you $1 billion. And she starts to laugh. That is her trying to think of something. She is stalling.
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think? Yeah. And when there has been reporting, I mean, this is not, look, I'm not saying this is on you and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to make that.
I didn't cause it.
So once again, they're not criticism because he's doing a good job here. But he's nicer to me because this is the responsibility. This is your leadership. This is what your leadership bore. You led a culture of corruption in the Pentagon. And now you laughing off the fact that you guys can't pass an audit. The fact that you're laughing off and trying to pretend the fact that you can't pass an audit isn't a big deal is exactly why you guys can't pass an audit. Because of leadership like that. So I would blame you. But once again, they're not criticism, John. You're doing a good job. But he's nicer than you.
But this laughter she has, Nick, this is a completely Kamala Harris uncomfortable laughter laugh. That's what this is. It's because now you have to, if you don't have a comeback, you have to now make what the other person is saying. This is so ridiculous. I'm laughing.
Yeah. It's typical,
like as if to say this is so beneath me even having a response because you don't have one.
Yep.
$850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went. Like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for. And especially when they see food insecurity on military bases.
Oh, Lord, he went here, Nick. Because this is literally, I don't know what it would be called in an MMA fight, where it's the move when you know this shit is over, nigga. This nigga's not, this is it right here. This is him tying, she has no way to defend this and not look like a clown, because what he's doing now, so you can't tell us where money is, and the people who are even fighting these wars, they are on food stamps, man. What is happening here?
Right.
You can't tell me where the money is, but you can't even provide enough funds for these people. It's no comeback. She can't attack the soldier who can't afford. She can't.
Yep.
So we'll listen to her response. Trying to play cleanup here.
And they see.
Let me rewind because I stopped it right in the middle of him saying that part. So let's go back 7 seconds here.
And they see food insecurity on military bases, and they see.
You want to talk about that because that's a good. We should be talking. I mean, I'm trying to understand where you're trying to go, other than the dollars, which really bother you.
Oh my God! I'm trying to understand. Why are you calling me out for my corruption? Oh my God! Why are you being so civil? I'm trying to get it. What I do to you? Go ahead, CJ.
This is a tactic that Marianne Williamson did. So what she did was what she did. This is literally. It was like she was down for the count. And then she got her composure and got up, because what she heard was a nugget for her to transition this conversation. She said, "Oh, food insecurity. Okay, yeah. Oh," and she went to zero in because of course, they have some sort of public plan that, of course, will be underfunded and not effective enough to get everybody covered. So that's what she's wanting to now kind of shift and talk about, because she literally has no response to. I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what it is. Most people think that's waste, fraud, and abuse. There's no answer to that. So now you see how it's a shift. So let her finish her point, and then we can finish this out, I guess. It goes into further, but let's
talk about that, because that's a good. We should be talking. I mean, I'm trying to understand where you're trying to go, other than the dollars, which really bother you.
Other than the money
it doesn't really bother me. I think it's all connected.
Imagine once again the cashier. Imagine you being approached by your manager. I don't know where you go. The dollar money, is that what you're really about? That what it's really about to you? The dollars, okay. $250. Fucking complaining over that shit.
You a cashier or you are a bank teller? What is this problem? Huh? I'm just short a couple of thousands of dollars. What is this dollar thing you want to do? Like, it's so preposterous.
It's so desperate.
Yeah, it's so preposterous.
See that story. Tell me how you're thinking about that.
When I see a State Department get a certain amount of money and a military budget be 10 times that, and I see a struggle within government to get people like more basic services, and then that department that got that, I mean, we got out of 20 years of war and the Pentagon got a $50 billion raise. Like, that's shocking to me. Now, I may not understand exactly the ins and outs and the incredible magic of it.
This is him trying to give them an out, trying to say that maybe I don't know top secret shit. No, John.
Back to the you did an MMA now earlier. like imagine you had the man rock. You see this every once in a while. You have a man rock, man. You land a few body shots as well. You been pestering with a jab. His leg is weak. You been landing the outside leg kick. And then right when he really hurt against the cage, you ease off. Like, come on, man. Damn, they mean really finish you like that, bro. That was John's doing here. He laying the foot off the pedal. Like, every once in a while, like in a UFC match, you would see someone get someone rocked, and then they would do a sloppy double leg takedown. And every time that happens, I go like, "Come on, man! You had him rocked against the cage. Get distance. Throw your combos." Then they do a lazy takedown, and that actually gives the guy a chance to recover. Oftentimes, that's what John just did. He had her rocked against the cage, and then he stopped. He shot a sloppy takedown. And now she's doing a defense, and while she's doing that, she's recovering, right? So let's continue. That's my analogy here. Go ahead, TJ.
And maybe that's her saying, "Okay, John has woken up. Okay, John is back. John is back, guys."
Of an audit, but I'm a human being who lives on the earth and can't figure out how $850 billion to a department means that the rank and file still have to be on food stamps. Like, to me, that's fucking corruption. I'm sorry.
So let me
look at her response. Look at her face. She knows
because there isn't one. Yeah, because there isn't one. Because there literally isn't one. That's why he was able to add a little bit of profanity there. Because it's like, literally, I'm spiking this, ma'am. I'm spiking this ball right now.
Never mind.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, never mind. I changed my analogy because after watching the end part, she let her recover, timed her, give her a middle finger, then land a knockout blow. After letting her recover again. Also, Muhammad Ali shit. Now that I see the whole part, that was actually a slick execution at the end.
Yeah.
Like right when he had to fight her against the cage, he let her recover. Come on, man. Come on. Let her recover. Boom! Landed another one. But continue.
Lucy, hold on.
Now, I may not understand exactly the ins and outs and the incredible magic of an audit, but I'm a human being who lives on the earth and can't figure out how $850 billion to a department means that the rank and file still have to be on food stamps. Like, to me, that's fucking corruption. I'm sorry.
Damn.
And if that blows your mind,
that's a knockout one right there. That boy was just chilling, waiting to corruption. It's over.
Hey, when I roll over this part, you see, I don't know if you can see it. It says most replayed part right here.
Everyone was like, "Damn." Everyone was like, "God,
just like
damn."
we're replaying it right here. So I'll let it play. I'll replay it and let it play.
To a department means that the rank and file still have to be on food stamps. Like, to me, that's fucking corruption. I'm sorry. And if that blows your mind, and if you think like that's like a crazy agenda for me to have, I really think that.
Say again.
He was like, if you think that's corruption, she's like, nah, don't really care. That's really what she just did. But let's continue.
She just shrugs it off.
Yeah, she's like, good point, but whatever. You got me.
That's institutional thinking. And that it's not looking at the day-to-day reality of the people that you call the greatest fighting force in the world. So I get back to this idea of like, I'm not looking to pick a fight with you, but I am surprised at that the reaction to these questions are, you don't know what an audit is, bucko. Like, that's just weird to me.
Okay. On food insecurity, major.
She realized she got destroyed. She realized like, damn, I got to scale this back. I just got fucking destroyed.
She said, I'm skipping all of that shit. She's like, I'm skipping all of that. Yeah. And even the last part, she knows she's done, because if she felt like, oh, this is still a fight, you imagine that little tug, that little thing, that little knife turn he just gave her at the end. Like, if you think I'm being ridiculous, then you're an institutionalist. Like, this was and you think, you calling me a bucko and all this stuff. This is him kind of twisting the knife, and she literally laughs at his joke about her, and then moves on, because she realized, this is over. I have lost this fight. I can't let this go any more viral than it has already gone. And let's see how she finishes out this year.
Priority for us. A lot of funds are going toward that. The biggest issues we have found, first of all, we have significantly increased funding on food insecurity. And we do think we are getting much better on that. We believe some of the challenges we face are not what you often think of as, food insecurity as hunger. They're really around, do we have food available? For instance, as people come on and off shifts. Is it
get
healthy
the fuck
food?
out of here. This is the part where capitalists pretend the supply is the problem. Don't believe them. Get the fuck out of here. We don't have enough food. Get the fuck. Whatever. Let it play. I hate when they do that shit.
Those are the types of food insecurity issues we are seeing in and around our military installations. We have increased pay 2 times in a row here. We've done 4.6% pay raise last year. We've asked for 5.2% pay raise
Still
this
in poverty, though.
We've also increased basic.
These 4 and 5% pay raises when you're behind 500%. What does that do? Like, these incremental changes, like if a capitalist is telling you this is a great pay raise, what does that mean? Literally, that literally means nothing. It doesn't have any worth, in my opinion. Let's continue.
Allowances and increased housing and pay and other allowances. So overall, we definitely think we need to increase the spending that we are putting forward toward our service members and their families. We're putting our money where our mouth is. Another big area is childcare. Spending a lot more money on childcare. That includes both childcare facilities, and it includes benefit that allows folks to go out on the economy to get childcare and have that subsidized by the government. Those are all examples of ways we're trying to put money forward for our service members and their families.
I wanted her to get, be fair and give her the opportunity to finish out. We know that it's bullshit, but give her the opportunity at least to say RBN allowed her to finish her statement, and it was bullshit. But what are your final thoughts on this display, just broadly, more not specifically maybe each detail, but broadly?
Yeah.
Do you think this kind of wakes up? Does this radicalize certain people? Does this would this have radicalized you if you saw this and you weren't in the position you're in now?
So this is a great performance by Jon Stewart. If you say otherwise, you're tripping. To be honest, that was a great performance. But I wish you had that kind of skepticism regarding Ukraine. Where's the challenging power regarding Ukraine? Because that's one of the things that's been one of the biggest disappointments. This is the story we covered a while ago. I need to take that. I need to take this link off. Here it is. It said Jon Stewart honors Azov Battalion at Pentagon-funded Disney World event. So I'm sorry, John. I will give you all the credit in the world for that video, but we got to hold you accountable for this shit, man. Like this and his recent comments on Ukraine it's been very hard to overlook. So I wish you had that same kind of criticism and hardline questions towards Anthony Blinken and Lloyd Austin and the Biden administration regarding their strategy on Ukraine than you do as the Pentagon. You went to a Pentagon event, but since it's funded as a battalion, apparently you have no problems with it. Those are the inconsistencies that bothers me. But overall, he did a great job in that clip. And that lady, she exposed herself more than Jon Stewart did. Yeah. That's why Jon Stewart, he wasn't even trying to be that adversarial. At the end, he was like, "Damn, you know how bad you just made yourself look." But that was his last response in a nutshell. Like, man, you made yourself look really bad there, pretending that us asking you questions about audit, and that will be the response of the manager that we have in our hypothetical. You say all the shit I just said in my hypothetical situation. They just be sitting you like, you know how fucking stupid you look to me right now, and that's what Jon Stewart did. So
it's the loss of narrative control. They're losing narrative control, and that's what's happening. And we're gonna go to the next story. That's kind of the same thing, losing narrative control. Seymour Hersh, our boy, everybody's boy, Seymour Hersh drops another gem, and we'll go right to that story. Hit that like button if you're watching. Much appreciated. So here is his stuff. His Substack article, and it's entitled "Trading with the Enemy." It's a very, very short article, but he has sources that talk about how Zelensky and his friends are skimming money or have skimmed money up to 400 million, and the CIA has confirmed this. But let's get into the article, Nick. Trading with the enemy amid rampant corruption in Kiev, and as U.S. troops gather at the Ukrainian border, does the Biden administration have an end game to the conflict? And this was just written yesterday, so brand new. I'll like this because I've read it, so I know what it's about. All right, so here we go. The Ukraine government, headed by Volodymyr Zelensky, has been using American taxpayers' funds to pay dearly for the vitally needed diesel fuel that is keeping the Ukrainian army on the move in its war with Russia. It is unknown how much the Zelensky government is paying per gallon for the fuel, but the Pentagon was paying as much as $400 per gallon to transport gasoline from a port in Pakistan via truck or parachute into Afghanistan during the decades-long American war there. Now, think about this. Decades-long American war, $400 per gallon, man. That sounds like that's an inflated price to me. That sounds like a lot of people is getting paid off of that money. 400 per gallon. And think about, this is a decade-long American war there. So just to conceptualize that amount. What also is unknown is that Zelensky has been buying the fuel from Russia, the country with which it and Washington are at war. And the Ukrainian president and many in his entourage have been skimming untold millions from the American dollar earmarked for diesel fuel payments. I'm going to read that.
I want you guys to know, and I'll let you continue here. This is another long list of these corruption stories. Like you had the CBS reporter showing that many weapons are not hitting the front lines. You have stories about Ukrainian officials buying penthouses. You have Zelensky's wife, go on a shopping spree in France. So these are things that are being uncovered. Imagine that when we don't know what happened thus far, because we sent all this money to Ukraine, but they still need more. What happened to that $70 billion? You guys really believe they spent all that $70 billion fighting Russia? No way. Ukraine, before this conflict, was widely considered to be the most corrupt country.
Yes.
And that's why they were concerned about arming these Ukrainians, especially these as a battalion types. They're 100% complicit with this kind of corruption. But let's continue. I'll pass to you, CJ.
Absolutely. I'm going to read. Yeah, I'm going to read this part again. So what also is unknown is that Zelensky has been buying the fuel from Russia. That is a very Russia is sanctioned. So Zelensky is buying the fuel from Russia, the country in which it and Washington are at war, and the Ukrainian president and many in his entourage has been skimming untold millions from the American dollar earmarked for diesel fuel payments. One estimate by an analyst from the Central Intelligence Agency put the embezzled funds at 400 million last year. At least, Nick, that's at least.
Yep.
Another expert compared the level of corruption in Kiev as approaching that of the Afghan war. quote, although there will be no professional audit reports emerging from the Ukraine, end quote. You see why they don't want it to be audits?
Mm-hmm.
You see why they can't pass an audit?
Oh, that's normal stuff, CJ. Why you worry about it? Why you guys worry about these audits, man? That's their mindset.
That's just so you come up short 400 million, and it's just what do you mean? What's the problem? And here's another quote. So, quote, Zelensky's been buying discounted fuel from the Russians, end quote. One knowledgeable American intelligence official told me, quote, and who's paying for the gas and oil? We are. Putin and his oligarchs are making millions on it. This is a clown show, man. Let's continue. Many government ministries in Kiev have been literally competing, I was told, to set front companies for export contracts for weapons and ammunition with private arm dealers around the world, all of which provide kickbacks. Many of those companies are in Poland and the Czech, but others are thought to exist in the Persian Gulf and even Israel. Quote, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that there are others in places that, like the Cayman Islands and Panama, and there are lots of Americans involved. An American expert on international trade told me. The issue of corruption was directly raised with Zelensky in a meeting. This is what's crazy and why William Burr is on the thumbnail, because the CIA has brought this up to him. And here is where he goes into it. The issue of corruption was directly raised with Zelensky in a meeting last January in Kyiv, with CIA Director William Burr. His message to the Ukrainian president, I was told by an intelligence official with direct knowledge of the meeting, was out of a 1950s mob movie. The senior generals and government officials in Kiev were angry at what they saw as Zelensky's greed. Sir Burns told the Ukrainian president because, quote, he was taking a larger share of the skin money than was going to the generals. Wow. Wow.
According to the United States and liberals, Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe, they're just going to change their mind now. They just changed their ways overnight. It was this is what we called out a long time ago, and it's been hilarious seeing this play out, not only just in this story but multiple stories. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, now this is rounding down. The article is almost already over. Burns also presented Zelensky with a list of 35 generals and senior officials whose corruptions was known to the CIA and others in the American government. So Burns gives him a list of 35 generals and senior officials who are known corrupt to the T in Ukraine. Gives him a list, and where am I? Burns also. Oh, my bad. Zelensky responded to the American pressure 10 days later by publicly dismissing 10 of the most audacious officials on the list and doing little else. Quote, the 10 he got rid of were brazenly bragging about the money they had, driving around Kiev in their new Mercedes, the intelligence officer. So he had to dismiss them because they were the ones publicly just throwing money out. Go ahead, Nick.
And this is one of the most blatant examples of Western propaganda and lie by omission, because I covered this at the time. Do you guys remember when all these Ukrainian officials got quote unquote resigned? They were fired from the Ukrainian government, and the Western media was like, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Just a massive amount of government officials resigning. This is kind of the follow-up to that. There was Zelensky in Ukraine panicking, and they threw these people under the bus who covered their entire corruption scheme. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, now I'm not going to read this. I just wanted to bring up, this is also, you can find this article written on Anti-War where they cover Seymour Hersh's article, if you want to have a little bit more digestible version of it, the CIA knows Ukrainian officials are skimming U.S. aid. Now think about that. The CIA, they don't care about that. You know, they're not doing anything. You think, oh, let's stop this money. They're skimming money. It's not really going to help people. No, we know it.
They've been saying too. Remember the United States officials was talking about how the military-industrial complex, and we get our own money back through the military-industrial complex, weapon defense contractors who later donate to media apparatuses and politicians, which is why they're all for it. And then the Ukrainian officials, they get the trickle-down corruption. They're like, we let them get that. We let you get that. It's cool. You're being a good boy. You can have it.
It's like we get the real money, so we'll let you go ahead and get this little bit of money. But yeah, you can check this out if you want a little bit better digestible version of it. I'll put both of the links in the description box after the stream is over. Go ahead. We can do one story before we get to Lula. I do want you to lead the Lula story if you are prepared. But that's what's up next, unless you have a story you want to insert first before we get to Lula.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna just add this receipt.
Okay, go ahead.
It's kind of relevant, not even a full story, but I'm gonna show you guys why we are state media. And this has been the ongoing coverage I have regarding NPR. Now PBS now quitting Twitter because they got government funded. And that is not my argument. Like the right wingers, and the liberals, they're having this super argument about government funding. And by the way, the liberals are wrong here. PBS and NPR are state funded, but that's not even my argument. My argument is how our media works. We have the worst form of quote unquote state media there exists, and this is just another example of this. This is Caitlin Johnstone always highlights great things because there are these Pentagon leaks that came out, and you have the White House that says, "Hey, media, don't report on the Pentagon leaks." John Kirby, the psychopath who we cover at least once a week on here, he says that information has no business being on the front pages of newspapers or on television. Do you guys want to know how the fourth estate of this country, the democracy dies in darkness, people responded to John Kirby's unhinged fascist declaration against the free press in this country? You guys want to know how they responded? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I promise we won't look into that stuff. Fox News. Aren't you guys supposed to be oppositional to Biden and the Democrats? Meanwhile, Fox News like, yes, daddy, yes, sir. We're not going to look into that. We're going to play the red-blue culture war game. We don't want that real shit. If you guys can't read it, I know it may be hard to read. Fox News has agreed, along with other news organizations, surely a coincidence, not to publish the leaked, highly classified documents. And Michael Tracy adds, what, is that just a favor to the Pentagon or something? Are you just being a team player?
How does
why would you agree to that? Sorry, I'll pass to you, but
go ahead.
He said, why will you agree to that? Why would anybody agree to that? Not only just one news organization, but Fox News, who's supposed to be adversarial to Biden and all the other news outlets. But CJ, I know you want to chime in.
I was just gonna say, like, how is that journalism? Isn't that fascism? Aren't you
taking orders?
You're taking orders from the state when you should be reporting on the state. You're doing the opposite job that you should be doing. I mean, journalism is just terrible in the United States. But John Kirby, and I think I might use that video as an outro video, but John Kirby having the audacity to be telling them in public. They don't send out little memos. They tell people, stop covering this shit, motherfucker. Like, stop covering this shit. That to me is amazing, and that they're following. But this explains, because at first, Nick, I didn't know this point. When I was trying to find out about this leak story, it was very hard to find what was said. They were just saying leak, the government leak, and I would be like, okay, and what's in it? What does it tell me that about the in it? It was very hard, and until I started hearing Baron Norden and Aaron Mate kind of reporting some of the stuff that's being reporting in it, and it's the reason why they don't want it. Yeah. What does that do? We don't want the people, or the citizens that's paying for this war, to know what's happening to the money. Why? What does that do? For us to know means what? Why shouldn't we know? You get what I'm saying? Like, what is the specific reason American public shouldn't know. If we know what happens, we stop supporting the war. We start asking questions. We start revolting. That's what happens. And this is what it's to calm the public. And that's not what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and I have another quick story. It's a video I want to watch, and then and then we can get to the Lula stuff because I have another receipt I want to throw in there as well. So our main story, we didn't talk about how Lula is challenging the United States dollar hegemony directly, and he is openly strengthening relationships with Beijing. And what Marianne Williamson and the NATO left will call the Chinese Communist Party. Lula is getting close to the Chinese Communist Party and saying that why should the U.S. dollar stay dominant? That's the next story. But I'm going to show you guys another reason why liberals are freaking out about China. Not only because people like Lula, Brazil, only the largest economy, largest population, biggest country in South America. No big deal. Oh, it's only Africa, South Africa as well. India, third populous country in the world. Oh, China, most populous country, biggest. Oh, not a big deal. Russia, not a big deal. No need to worry. That's what they want you to believe. Meanwhile, in the background, they are freaking the fuck out. Now, this is a great video from Carl Zah. We had him on the show quite a few times. A great guest. I want to play this video. It literally speaks for itself because this person, God bless her heart, is like a Morning Joe viewer. Like, we do these propaganda reports, and you in the comments, I see you guys like, who watching this shit? I can't believe like, you guys be raging just like we do. The comments be hilarious. You guys like, who watching this shit? And this is an example of people who watch it, like the cowbell.
So funny.
Remember the people that do distance exposed that didn't want to go after George Bush? Morning Joe watcher. This person who I'll show right now. Morning Joe watcher. So that's my last preface. Let's watch the video.
I'm been very concerned lately about China.
She's been concerned lately about China. Wonder who implanted that fear into her brain. You think she's just waking up one day? Oh my God, China! No, she's getting this fear implanted into her, the same as all suburban wine moms everywhere. Not even just in the United States, in Australia as well. Caitlin Johnstone's right about the insane anti-China propaganda. She says it's arguably worse there. I'm like, damn. Because they like right there, U.S. sending nuclear submarines for them to be a counter to China as well. Anti-China propaganda in Japan as well. It's crazy. So I'll start the video over again. You guys see this is what she leads into. And this guy, I don't know, I didn't look into this guy, but this guy dismantles her. And it was brilliant. Let's play it.
I'm been very concerned lately about China. They're in Africa. They're lending money to countries to build ports and different infrastructure.
To build what?
Port.
And what's wrong with that?
And well, because
countries that need ports get ports.
But they're making people dependent on. I mean, I know it's the same thing that we've done, which is
no, it's not
around the world.
They are far more humanistic than the United States ever was.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. So
let me give you an example. Of course, they are peddling.
This is why I think she's a Morning Joe watcher because, like, this is why I say God bless
she's
her.
Genuine. She's not at all. I can hear it in her voice and her demeanor. She's been fooled.
Yeah.
So, like, the way he's responding, maybe he's not trying to be, but it's coming off that way as if, like, it's like a suspect. She's genuinely isn't understanding what's going on probably right now. Yes,
CJ. That's exactly why I described her the way I did. She subscribed to the New York Times, watched the Post, and I told you guys, if you focus and you watch corporate media, you're gonna be less informed than people who don't watch that shit.
Yeah.
You want to know who's not falling for China fear mongering? My brothers and shit. They're not working on China because they're not ingesting that toxic media. So I'm gonna go back just a little bit more, and then we can get into it.
The States ever was.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great.
I'm gonna go back a little bit more, but I also want to mention he handled this perfect, and I need to learn more from this as well. Like when you are brainwashed, like just ask them basic questions, and you watch their ideology fall apart, and that's what this guy does, and it's really great to see.
Which is
no, it's not
around the world.
They are far more humanistic than the United States ever was.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. So
let me give you an example. Of course, they are peddling for influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they are non-interventionist. Absolutely non-interventionist in a way that Europeans, the West, has never managed to fathom. The Chinese never asked Apple to go to Shenzhen and produce all the iPhones. It was Steve Jobs that decided that. Yeah? It was not China that went to Washington, D.C. and demanded that they buy a third of your national debt. If they hadn't bought it, you would be in serious trouble. When it comes to the influence of China outside its borders, it's quite remarkable that they don't seem to have any military ambitions. Instead of going into Africa with troops, colonially, destroying the country, killing people like the West has done for the last 100 years, what they did was they went to Addis Ababa and they said to the government, we can see you have problems with your infrastructure. We would like to build some new airports, upgrade your railway system, create a telephone system, and rebuild your roads. And we'll do this all for free. No strings attached. We don't want anything from you. And they did. Why did they do it? Because this is soft power. They are immense.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. And CJ, what's wrong with that? So what China does, they build diplomacy and relationship with countries through these actions. In the United States, who's in the West, in the UK, who built their countries based on violence and imperialism, their mind cannot comprehend this shit. What do they want? What are they trying to get out of this? They do get something out of it. They are acting in benefit. They get close relations and they get people that want to do business with them. The people who are more friendly to them. So CJ, when you have a problem with people, imagine someone donated $500 to a homeless shelter, but then they say that, well, the only reason I donated $500 is I want people to compliment me. I want people to say I'm a nice guy. I'm like, shit, I don't give a fuck as long as you get that $500. He just sits there like, man, people praising me. This is the only reason I do. He's doing it for ego reasons. He wants people to praise him. I don't give a fuck if you're doing it for that. You're doing a good thing. That's China and Africa. China is building and doing stuff in Africa for their own reasons, to grow their geopolitical power. But if you build a hospital, roads, and you fix this country, who gives a fuck? I'm like, yeah, the Chinese motherfuckers are cool. I'm cool with them. That's what China says.
Well, the opposite is to bomb hospital in the name of defense.
Yes.
In the name of democracy, I should say. That's the opposite of what you're saying. So that's another great, but that's a well-known. I don't know if you would call him an activist, but yeah, I've seen him. He's an intellectual. I've seen him. I think the main account follows that guy on Twitter. I forget his name.
I may know him.
I've seen his face. I've seen his face many times.
It may be one of the things if I may know him if I see him. You know what I mean? It was just one of the videos that I haven't seen before. I thought it was extremely interesting. So
yeah, he's like a well-known activist, lecturer. I've seen him before. But go ahead. We can get to the Lula.
I'll pass some announcements. That's a quick story. I just want to share that video. I'll pass you for announcements real quick, and I'll set up the little story.
Yeah. So as Nick sets that up, last time I checked, we were at 240 likes. We had 435 people watching. That's about a 200 gap. Can we get at least 100 of you hit that like button? So I'm asking for half the people that haven't hit that like button and are watching right now to hit that like button. So 100 people hit that like button, get us to about 350 likes. I'll start from the bottom this time. Our GoFundMe is now here. You see that at the bottom. It's not customized yet, so you got to kind of copy down the exact address. But if you're able to contribute to our labor fund, it's scrolling there at the bottom. Right now we're trying to raise $1,000. The other thing, here's our email if you needed to contact us, info@revblacknetwork.com. We're calling for people who are interested in being if you are living in one of the member cities, if you're interested in being part of the local RBN chapter in your area, and I'm gonna read you the cities. It's 5 cities, and like I said, these are member launch cities. So these are where we're launching our chapters, and it's let me just show you first. So we have Long Beach, Orlando. Oh, so let me give you the state: Long Beach, California; Orlando, Florida; Detroit, Michigan; Boston, Massachusetts; or Kansas City, Missouri. If you want to join one of these local chapters, our launching chapters, just email us at info@RevBlackNetwork and just put in the subject line the city you're in. So if you're in Kansas City, put that in the subject line. If you're in Detroit, if you're in Boston, and so on, and Long Beach, and any surrounding city, if you're able to and willing and wanting to be a part of the local chapter in one of these 5 cities, reach out to us by email, and I'll pass it back to you.
So this segment, we're gonna discuss how Lula, just like AMLO, man, like I don't know, like in communications, but they've been going hard in the paint against the United States recently. AMLO had led a coalition with South American countries to condemn the Cuban embargo, a giant blow to the United States, condemned them for their strategy regarding Ukraine, and also praised BRICS as well. Now you have Lula, who challenged the United States in a way that I didn't expect it to be to this degree. I saw his comments supporting BRICS, his comments where he criticized Zelensky and NATO before the Ukraine war, and that's why I was kind of excited. You guys saw, I was like, man, he's saying good. I was watching. He was saying good stuff foreign policy wise, and I knew that my Brazilian leftists, like Josana and me, the brothers and sisters I met down there, would hold him accountable for domestic policy. So as someone who's not domestically Brazilian, I was looking at his foreign policy. This foreign policy regarding calling out the West is really is exciting. It's good to see, and I know Brazilians will hold him accountable regarding domestic policy. So I'm gonna show you guys this first, and we're gonna warm ourselves into the story because I'm gonna show you guys just one example of Lula rebuking the United States foreign policy the way that I will argue that Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the left should be doing. And that's why it's immensely disappointing. Before the Ukraine war, I was extremely upset with them, but I said it multiple times on the show. Like, the support for them for the Ukraine war is a thing that's a dagger in the heart. They don't even realize, CJ, how much they destroyed their legacy, their credibility, and their reputation. That's why they can't run from that shit. That's why David Shaw knew he got at least say the word Ukraine around AOC. They get faced with protests all the time in their own district. This is going to be a stain on their legacy forever. Meanwhile, in South America, in Mexico, guess who has the balls to call this out? Lula. Guess who is not complicit with funding Nazis in Ukraine? Lula. This is Glenn Greenwald. And this is reported by the New York Times. I always got to pull this because I'm always locked out of the New York Times. Brazil, under Lula, still refuses to provide arms to Ukraine, causing big problems for Kyiv. So you guys, people who think that, man, Nick guy, he really hates Bernie. He really hates the boutique left on shit. You guys know how much I want to do a story where I'm like, man, you guys see what Bernie Sanders said about NATO? Can you imagine how trippy those segments would be? Like, Bernie Sanders is saying the same shit as Lula was saying. He was voting no against the Ukraine packages. Yeah. We would obviously have less to criticize him about. I would do stories just like this. I'm like, man, Bernie Sanders calls out Joe Biden for his NATO policy. But guess what? I can't do that. I got to look at another continent. I got to look across oceans. We got to look at Irish politicians to speak truth to power on this. This is why I cover Lula a lot. This is what Glenn Greenwald brings up, his still refusal to support the Ukraine war. Lula's 2 key points. Our war is to improve citizens' lives, not with Russia. We want to facilitate peace, not fuel war. That's Lula's mentality. So all the NATO leftists who were celebrating Lula winning and pretending that he was one of them, they don't even agree with him on foreign policy. They don't agree with him on something that's this important, not like a small disagreement. You guys know Lula more socially conservative. He's kind of a driller too. You know, these are things that left in Brazil had criticism of. Not even like that. You're talking about geopolitics, relationships between countries, your relationship and your stance on China, your stance on the Ukraine war. These are big differences, but these people still pretend that they're some sort of closest representative of Lula politics, right? So this is just a video of what I'm gonna transition to because now the big story is Lula and China. So I just want to show you guys the theme because this is a big deal. The speech that Lula gave, where he pretty much straight up challenges the U.S. dollar hegemony. And this is him meeting. Let's pull the description here. This is in Shanghai.
Yeah, that's where he's starting. That's where he's starting in Shanghai. Yes.
Yeah, and it said Hawaii, I hope I'm saying that right, has been doing business in Brazil for 25 years as well. I also want to show this tweet because this tweet is a great summary. I'll show Catherine's tweet.
Oh, that was one of the ones I was going to show. So good, good. So
this is a great account. This is a great summary of this article that I put up that I'm kind of locked out of. Like I had this article up because I like to read from the source material usually, but since I'm locked out, let's read this tweet because this tweet is a good substitute for that. So this is Kathan. He said, "Dang, President Lula gives a revolutionary speech in Shanghai, openly challenging the dollar hegemony. At a speech at the BRICS Bank, whose new president is former President Mrs. Rousseff, Lula said this: Every night I ask myself why all countries have to base their trade on the dollar. Why can't we do trade based on our own currencies?" Now, listen to this. This drew loud applause from the audience of Brazilian and Chinese dignitaries. The writing is on the wall, guys. There's nothing the United States can do at this point. The Biden regime, the Bush-Trump neoliberal regime is reaping what they sow. And there's nothing that they can really do that's obviously within reason that we know of their character that's going to change this. So anyway, let me continue this tweet. I'll pass to you, CJ, for any thoughts that you have on this as well. Who was it that decided that the dollar was the currency after the disappearance of the gold standard? Why can't a bank like that of BRICS have a currency to finance trade relations between Brazil and China, between Brazil and other countries? These are very significant things that Lula are saying, because if you look at his tweet conclusion, de-dollarization is a geopolitical hurricane that the United States cannot stop. This will be the end of the U.S. dollar preeminent role as the world's reserve currency as well. So giant geopolitical shift, but not worth David Jones' time. Not worth TYT's time to cover this. We got to cover the Culture War instead. This is giant. And if only we had someone like Bernie Sanders that was saying this as well. CJ, do you have another receipt?
Yeah, I have a few receipts here to kind of go through, and you jump in if you have comments on any of these receipts whenever you want to. This one here just kind of sums up. I don't know if this is Telesur. Yeah, this is it. That's what I thought. Telesur. I just guessed too. So let's listen to what they're reporting. This is Brian Meir. I think that's how you say it. Reporting on it. It's only about a minute and 20 seconds.
Brazil's President Lula has finally arrived in the city of Shanghai in China, where he was greeted at the airport by former Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff. Tomorrow, he's going to go to her official inauguration ceremony as the new president of the New Development Bank, or BRICS Bank, as it's commonly called. The Chinese government has expressed satisfaction with Lula's nomination of Rousseff as bank president. The Brazilian delegation is arriving with proposals for 20 bilateral trade agreements, and they hope to move forward jointly on a variety of problems that the country is facing right now. One of the proposals allegedly will be that a Chinese auto company take over all of the Ford factories that were abandoned in 2021 when President Bolsonaro didn't do anything to stop Ford from leaving the country after 100 years. There's a lot of expectation that Brazil is going to join China's Belt and Road Initiative. This would make Brazil the 22nd country in Latin America to do so. One of the main goals of Lula's visit is to jointly work on a peace proposal, bringing as many other countries as they can into a so-called peace club to try and negotiate an agreement between the governments of Ukraine and Russia. Expectations are high for what promises to be a historic moment in the history of both of these countries.
I'm happy to be experiencing, to be alive, to kind of be experiencing.
It's happening faster than I thought.
What's happening? Yeah, and I think it's because the pandemic there's a lot of sort of events that kind of have pushed this forward, and I think the pandemic is one of them. So let's read this. This one is from Fiorella.
I'm glad you got that one
he
too.
went. Yeah, this is before he left, but just
so I'm gonna have Fiorella on tomorrow at noon for people who didn't hear the announcement at the beginning. Very interested in talking to her about this topic as well. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, so Lula will meet with Xi Jinping to lay out a joint peace plan for the Russia-Ukraine conflict when he visits China on April 11th through 15th, which he's there now. He also said NATO should not be at Russia's border. Russia is the guarantor of a long-standing peace in the world. Ownership of Crimea perhaps must be discussed at all. Must not be discussed at all. He's talking about Crimea. And then new Russian regions worth understanding. And that's just another little tidbit of information I wanted to add. I got a couple of other just headlines to show, just to see how some of the news outlets are covering this. Here's AP. I'm assuming this is AP from Brazil. I'm sorry, no, this is that's just his name in Spanish. Hold on. Okay, so Brazil President Lula, I'll just shorten it, is in the Chinese financial hub of Shanghai as he looks to boost ties with his country's biggest trading partner. Lula is due to meet with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, in Beijing on Friday. Lula is right now in Shanghai. Washington Post is also covering it. Now, listen to this, Nick. Listen to how this article, we might want to read a little bit about it. Listen how this article.
I just read it.
Oh, you just read it? Okay, so
no, I mean,
I read it to.
As soon as I saw on the screen, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Go ahead, CJ.
Brazilian President Lula da Silva risks alienating the U.S. and Europe as he hosts Iranian warships, equivocates over Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and negotiates with
China. How dare you do? How dare you negotiate with another country without our permission? The audacity of these people, man. Yeah. And by the way, like, it's not the United States being, and not Lula being alienated by the United States and Europe. It's Biden's foreign policy isolating the United States and causing countries who otherwise close friends to go towards China and Russia. I played a clip by Nick and Knight yesterday in my intro showing how Joe Biden was talking to Russia and China, and they were like, "Oh, I dare you guys to form a relationship. Good luck with that. I dare. You guys not gonna do shit. You guys ain't gonna do shit." Now they're sweating because now people going to China and Russia. So it's not the negative as the Washington Post is trying to portray towards Lula, but that headline is great because that shows that Washington Post and these liberals, journals, they are in pure cope and seethe mode, CJ. So they are desperately trying to spin this shit. Oh my God, they're alienating the United States. They're like, all right, bye, bitch. We don't give a fuck. Anyway, go ahead, CJ.
I'm just showing a couple of graphics here. Oh, this is the other one. This is RT. Oh no, sorry. I should have played that as Zelensky, but it's all right. The other. Oh, here it goes. Ben Norton kind of just talks about this part here. Brazil's President Lula da Silva arrives in China today for an historic visit. China's foreign minister points out that this will be Lula's first foreign trip outside of the Americas, reflecting the great importance of Brazil-China ties as co-founding members of BRICS. And that's what this translation, he basically translates that there. So a couple of other receipts to show you and just graphics. That's him in Shanghai. Also, just another picture, and then you see him here walking through. This is in Shanghai with his wife. Love to see it. I'll take that down now. Yep. And then there's a couple more receipts. Oops, I backed up too much. Couple more receipts here to just kind of buy, or this one here. Let's listen to this lady, and this might be the last one video that I show you. But here is a bit of real politics on the importance of Lula's visit to China from former dictatorship era student union leader, political reporter, and founding director of Brazil's public television station. Now, I will translate it because it's, she's speaking. It's very short, but I will translate it. So I'll play it without the sound, and then I'll just read it here. So let me read this first part. Everyone in Brazil knows that commercial relationships with China were damaged by Bolsonaro's negative negotiation democracy. I've never heard of that word, but I think it means negative diplomacy. And now let's see what's the next part here. Lula wants to rebuild these bridges. The ones that Bolsonaro tore down is what she's referring to. And he wants to take advantage of the political conflict between U.S. and China. Just like Brazil, benefited in the past from commercial conflict between the U.S. and China. And Brazilian businessmen are excited to see these relationships rebuilt so they can start doing business with China again.
See, that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting because I want you guys to realize. I'll go ahead and read that part and I'll finish my
this is why so many businessmen are in China with Lula, which I didn't know that. So she's giving another little tidbit. There's more businessmen. I think that's the last part, Nick. So go ahead.
Now I want to ask them because this is going to be very interesting to see how this shapes Brazilian politics. Because I want you guys to realize that despite Lula's victory and his plan to end poverty in Brazil, Brazil is still a deeply polarized country. It's still a deeply culture war driven country, and it's also heavily driven by the class war. Now, Bolsonaro and the right learned to push the culture war, especially the large anti-LGBT sentiment in Brazil as well against them. But when you look at Bolsonaro's support is largely white, upper class, and affluent. And that's why the media was largely in the tank for Bolsonaro. There was a large class war element, like even among the evangelicals. Like if you look at black poor evangelical Brazilians, they was largely supporting Lula. It was a large class dynamic. So that's why I say it's interesting. So if Lula can bring Chinese business and the business class of Brazil sides with Lula just simply because of his position on China, that's when things get very interesting domestically. Because even though Lula is killing it on the world stage, domestically he still has a lot of hurdles to overcome. He didn't he don't have like all full Congress seats and all that stuff. Like he didn't completely watch Bolsonaro's party. So it would be interesting with that last to see how the Bennett class reacts to Lula now, simply because he is standing for Brazil's strategic autonomy and opening business and trade with China. We see that it'd be interesting to see how that play out. CJ, anything else you have on this?
Yeah,
I have one. Go ahead, CJ. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's part of this article, and then we can get to. I mean, it's part of this segment, and then if you have another couple,
I have one more short story. I have one more short story, like really short story.
But I do want to add this because I was able to get through Washington. So that Washington Post article where they're saying he's not a friend. Listen to what they're saying, Nick. This is the Washington Post saying the West hoped Lula would be a partner. He's got his own plans. Brazilian's new president risks alienating the U.S. and Europe as he hosts Iranian warships, equivocates over the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and negotiates with China.
Look at the headline. This is why I was pushing back at people. Even with remember what we were saying months ago during the Lula election with Bolsonaro? There was people that are saying that, oh my God, it's kind of suspicious that Biden is okay with Lula being Bolsonaro. Like, isn't that evidence that he's a Soros plant? And I deeply put back out, like, have you guys seen what he was saying? I don't understand why Biden in the United States thought Lula was out in the open criticizing the United States strategy on Ukraine. That quote that I read all the time was during the election. It was during the election that said his number one priority is to expand BRICS. That's why I was like, holy shit, you guys see what Lula's saying? That's why it didn't make sense when I saw people saying that he's some sort of Soros puppet, because there is legitimate criticism on like where he stands on like mandates and all this stuff. And that's why the West didn't like Bolsonaro, because Bolsonaro was more like on the right DeSantis position on mandate.
Oh, yeah.
So my take was the establishment turned on Bolsonaro because of COVID. And they thought because Lula was more on their side on COVID that they can rein him in on other issues. That was not the case. And that's what I thought was going to be interesting paying attention to. And that's what this article is playing to. Like, man, the West thought they're going to have Lula be the good boy. Nah, bro, nah. It just politics is different in Brazil. No matter what our position is, Lula constituency was largely in support of Lula's COVID policy. That's just how Brazil domestic policy works. You still gonna have criticism of that, but that helped Lula ride a wave of victory. But go ahead, CJ.
All right, so let's read a little bit of this, and then I'll pass to you for your next story. In his first months in office, Brazilian President Lula da Silva has declined to join President Biden in condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine, allowed Iranian warships to dock in Rio de Janeiro, and dispatched a senior advisor to meet with Venezuelan strongman Nicolas Maduro. So they're big mad, Nick. These are some of the things they list of why he's not showing that
that's
he's
another
down
thing I forgot.
with the imperialists. Go ahead.
Sorry, CJ, that's another thing I forgot. Another thing I thought was very that had me excited about Lula was he said he wanted to normalize relationship with Venezuela, and that's a big shift over Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro was a Western bootlicker. Not only was he a Zionist bootlicker, but he was caught sending military death squads into Venezuela. He was big into overthrowing Nicolas Maduro. That's why whenever people say Maduro was like the anti-establishment candidate, like, what are you talking about? It makes no sense. You have no idea what you're talking about. He was a puppet of the U.S. regime. Yes, he pushed back on a few things, but on large things like Zionism and Israel. Meanwhile, Lula stands for Palestinian rights. Like, these are big geopolitical differences. And I always want to emphasize this with, I hope my communist and socialist Brazilian brothers or sisters are successful pushing Lula domestically, because they have a lot of criticisms of Lula domestically. But in terms of foreign policy and geopolitical world stage, Lula has surpassed what I thought he was going to do. That's just me saying that. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, and I agree. And former member Josana also was like, yeah, she was down for Lula, and she's on the ground, had activists, like some of the bigger, well-known activists.
I talked to
they came and they were all saying, yeah, we're going with Lula, but we're gonna be right at his face, and I believe them. They're not like,
they about that life, guys.
I believe them. Yeah, they about that show.
There's a guy I interviewed on the show a long time ago. This dude was literally kidnapped and literally trying to be charged by Bolsonaro squad. Like, it's not like ordinary U.S. weak boutique left politics. This is like life and death struggle shit. I was talking to indigenous Brazilians, and they was making an argument that it was genocide. These are the old FHO days, when we had Josana on. This is why I learned a lot about this domestic policy. And I am rooting for them because Josana said on our show, we're going to hold Lula accountable because we got a lot of criticism on some of this domestic shit he's talking about. But he's way better than Bolsonaro because of the reasons I listed. His support of the destruction of the Amazon rainforest. He was leading police death squads that you had indigenous people that made the claim that he was committing genocide. And who are you going to believe?
What I was just
I'm not there. I'm not there, but trust me, I'm gonna believe the indigenous people over the Bolsonaro government.
Yeah, so just like we believe the Palestinians over Israel, just like I'm gonna believe black people and indigenous people over the police state here. That's how it's just gonna be. Sorry, sorry. That's how it works. Yeah. So yeah. Let me read some of this. Is pretty ridiculous. I mean, it's the Washington Post, and they're basically protecting, or at least projecting, because of hegemony, the loss of U.S. hegemony. So on Friday, Lula heads to Beijing, the finale of a 3-day trip to China. More than 200 Brazilian business leaders. So this is what that video was referencing. That's why all the business leaders, you know how many capitalists are fucking seething at this.
Yeah.
200 Brazilian business leaders headed to China ahead of Lula's visit to hash out a flurry of deals that will bring Brazil closer to its larger trading partner at a time when the relationships between Washington and Beijing have grown increasingly tense. Lula's schedule includes a stop in Shanghai's facility of Huawei. I always say that wrong. Huawei, the telecommunications giant that has been subject to U.S. sanctions. In the Chinese capital, Lula will meet with Xi Jinping, the country's top leader, who is pushing to upend the U.S.-led international order, Nick, and position China as a diplomatic power broker. Brasilia, I think, meanwhile, is helping Beijing boost its currency, the yuan, over the dollar. Let me go ahead.
No, my bad. But I bet the Washington Post, because I don't read the Washington Post because they always pay lock, right? I bet they are just as hilarious to read as Morning Joe is to watch.
Yes.
Because this article is full of cope and seed, and I'm greatly enjoying this. But go ahead, CJ. That's all I want.
Now, I do want to read this part. This is what I was trying to say. I wanted to read this again because it's like you said, like it feels good just to say this shit. Let me just say this again. In the Chinese capital, Lula will meet with Xi Jinping, the country's top leader, who is pushing to upend the U.S.-led international order.
Yeah.
And position China as a diplomatic power broker.
Dude, I'm like reading this in Joe Scarborough's voice. I'm like reading his voice. Go ahead, CJ, my bad.
I wonder how they're covering. I haven't watched Morning Joe in a couple of days, so I wonder how they're covering this. But Brazil is helping Beijing boost its currency, the yuan, over the dollar. Lula's election victory last year over Bolsonaro, the dictatorship, admiring former military officer who aligned himself with President Donald Trump and the global right.
That's also what did it too, by the way, because like the United States and Bolsonaro had a close relationship. His stance on COVID and his open friendship with Donald Trump. That's why you see them being critical of Bolsonaro. They don't have any substantive criticism of his policy. That's what it is. Sorry, CJ, go ahead.
It's just, if as long as they can tie him to Trump and act like he's just a Trump ally and like he wouldn't be just as an ally to Joe Biden.
To be fair, guys, Bolsonaro is extremely Trumpy. That's not even an untrue statement. Like there's a lot of parallels between him and Trump.
That's what they call him.
That's why they hate him.
Trump.
But that's why they hate him, though. But go ahead, CJ. Go ahead.
Yeah. So align himself, Trump and global right, buoyed optimism that Latin America's most populous nation would be a partner in promoting democratic norms in the Western Hemisphere and beyond. So this is what this is what the United States was hoping. But instead, Nick, Lula is reminding the world of his approach to foreign policy, which, in keeping with his first stint in office, prioritizes pragmatism and dialogue and shows little concern over whether it antagonizes Washington or the West. Like, they're doing what the fuck they want for their country, regardless of what it does to the United States. And the United States is like, what the fuck is going on here? They're not used to that. A bully's not used to being treated normal.
The ideology and the way the Western chauvinist views the world is fascinating to me, man. Like I told you, I was a college dropout. Like, I wasn't that passionate into that shit. Like, dude, if I went back and I studied this shit, I would have been hella into it. Because to me, it's fascinating, dude. Because you see how the West, they don't even know they view the world completely different than me. My mind economy, look, their opinion on a leader is just based on how subservient they are to the West. How dare you negotiate and be friendly with China? How dare China expand their country's geopolitical power in Africa?
Yeah.
So anything that does not go to the West, they view with disdain. And that is a worldview that is so foreign to me. I might as well be studying an alien. Like, that's these people are crazy to me. But go ahead, CJ.
One example, this is an example they give, Nick. The Russian invasion. Brazil supported a UN resolution in February calling for peace and demanding Moscow withdraw troops from Ukraine. Now, see, this is what the U.S. uses. Now, this is why some people were mad about Lula deciding to say, hey, y'all will sign a resolution, but we covered it here. And, you said, and sort of our saying, it's like, it's not willing to do it, but he's doing it. But at the same time, he's saying this other thing against Ukraine. But this is what they're using it. Now they have him sign this thing, which is just really doing it in conjunction with something else. Now they're using it. Look, he signed it, and now he's switching up. They're trying to make it seem like he's switching up. So let's continue with the article. But weeks later, Lula refused to sign on to a declaration from President Biden's Summit for Democracy that condemned Russia's assault on its neighbor. A senior advisor to Lula did not believe the forum was the appropriate place to discuss war. In contrast with Bolsonaro's pugnacious isolationism, Lula has long sought to expand Brazil's role on the world stage. He argues that Brazil, home to more people than the UN Security Council's permanent members, Russia, Britain, and France, should be granted membership in that elite club. And here's the quote: Brazil wants to reform world governance. I don't know who this is, but a senior advisor to the president told the Washington Post, quote, we would like to have a world governance which does not look, we would like to have a world governance which does not look like the present Security Council. And I'll stop there. The article goes on. But this is the reaction, Nick, to Lula. This is the freak out that you described. Yeah, this is the freak out that you described. This is the freak out that, like, they're acting like this is okay, but they're really freaking out in the background. I'll pass to you for the final words, and if you still have a short article,
It's going to be interesting to see how this slowly develops, because I've been following this for quite some time as a host of RBN now, right? So I've been seeing the slow escalation. I don't know if most people realize it. Like they may see a little bit here and there, but as someone who's been following this for about a year or two, I definitely have been seeing upticks. Like they always been bad, but there's more desperation, and I see the shift. I see how aggressive. Like you guys saw my propaganda report yesterday. I spent like an hour watching this damn video for CNN, just how aggressive they was being against China, and that's pure panic, and not people who got the situation under control. So I think that was a very fun breakdown of Lula. Now I'm gonna get to a fun story to wrap up. Make sure you guys check out my conversation. As of now, we scheduled for tomorrow at noon. Fiorella is in Moscow, so we always gotta do a little bit earlier for the time zone difference. So that will be tomorrow. I think that's like 12 a.m. your time, CJ. By the way,
that's what I was gonna say. It's like they're 9 hours ahead of East Coast or something like that.
Yeah, so we gotta knock out a show before Fiorella go live too, because she's doing another show. So I think it's maybe like 7 or 8 her time, but that's irrelevant for us. So it's gonna be like 12 Central, 1 p.m. Eastern here, and having this conversation with her and getting her takes about everything been going on gonna be interesting. This is gonna be a funner story. I don't know if you guys saw this video, and the reason why I'm covering this is to make a larger point that the deep state is 100% real. If you guys think that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are making decisions, you're out of your goddamn mind. And that's why I'm covering this. I usually don't criticize Biden that much over dementia, even though it's a legitimate criticism. Don't get me wrong. If you want to criticize Biden dementia, that's legitimate, because you're talking about the person who got the nuclear fucking codes, the president of the United States. I feel like we should be able to question that person's mental acuity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are, oh my God, you being ageist. Get the fuck out of here, okay? I would call it ageism when I see it, but ageism doesn't exist for Joe Biden, okay? When you're the president of the United States. Like for paid maternity leave is another. I'm for paid maternity leave, unless you're Pete Buttigieg in this time right now. You know what I mean? So I admit, I got different standards for these things with regarding the ruling class. But if you have that much power, there's some things that you gotta be sharp mentally. You can't take paid maternity leave. You rich enough to afford nannies. Get the fuck out of here. So let's get into this video, and I'm gonna show you guys what I'm covering. This is Joe Biden. This is hilarious. I'm playing first, and I'll kind of describe what's happening. He's entering. This is him in UK. He does not recognize the prime minister. That's the brown prime minister. And he just shoves him away like he's some brown servant, and he sees the white military guy. And he was like, "Oh, that's the official." So this Joe Biden have no idea where he's at. And to be fair to him, UK has been changing prime ministers a lot, so he probably had no idea. He probably expecting to meet Margaret Thatcher. Biden has no idea what he's at.
Margaret Thatcher.
He got there like, "Where's Boris Johnson now? What the fuck is going on here?" So I'm sorry, I'll play the video. Here's the video. It's not a long video. Once again, they're not gonna be a long segment. I think this is a fun way to wrap the stream. So look, he sees the brown prime minister. He's like, "Who the fuck is that? Get that servant the fuck out of here." He's like, "Get this servant boy out of here." And he's like, "Sir, I'm actually the prime minister."
Oh my God.
And that's how my mind views this shit, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
So why? No, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. And I was just gonna say, man, like, who's really running this country?
Yes.
Joe Biden is obviously not running this country. Now, typically, we already know that the president is most likely, is not most likely, it is largely a figurehead, and corporations are giving them the instructions. They're largely a managerial support for the ruling class. But in this instance, what Joe Biden is displaying here is that there's no way that he can make this sort of mistake, Nick, and then he's making the right decisions on Ukraine.
Yeah.
Then he's turning around making the right decisions on $15 minimum wage, on climate change. Like, that is not possible. So this, to me, so clearly, and maybe Ronald Reagan was the last one, since Ronald Reagan clearly shows, it clearly shows, if you have a mentally incapacitated person as the leader of the nation, how is it still functioning? It's an indication that this person is not really that's running the show. This is not the person running the show. There's so many other people running the show, and this is just the figurehead face. And I think it proves that.
Absolutely. Now, I'm glad you took it there, because that's why I covered this. I usually don't cover it by dementia stuff, but that's the overall point, guys. And I made that point. You can look at my old tweets. I made the point over and over again before the election. I'm like, look how sick Joe Biden is. I want him to get help. But if he wins this election, who's going to be calling the shots in this country? This guy is not looking at the map in Ukraine, looking like, you guys really think Joe Biden like, let me think of the geopolitical consequences of engaging with Russia and Ukraine. Let me think of the geopolitical consequences. No, he's not doing shit, son, except
Nick,
barely keeping it together in the suit. You got. And
do you think?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you think he has been put in this position so that we can be marched to nuclear war, Armageddon?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Would any other sane president be like down with this? Or they had to get somebody like this that's incapacitated?
I think Pete Buttigieg
just kind of going, yeah. Go ahead.
Like in the last election, I think Pete Buttigieg would be down. Like Amy Klobuchar was down.
Yeah, he would do whatever.
Like they was down for whatever, but they knew that Biden has a long track record, so they like he gonna shut the fuck up. He know he's there just to be the public face. Anthony Blinken is to Joe Biden the same way that Dick Cheney was to George W. Bush Jr. Where not even Kamala Harris, because Kamala, she ain't doing shit, son.
She's not doing it.
How pathetic is that? Because Dick Cheney was vice president. At least Dick Cheney was obviously the chess master, the guy obviously in charge of that motherfucker. Everyone knows that now. That what Anthony Blinken and Lloyd Austin is to the Biden administration. When you see Anthony Blinken interview with Chuck Todd, where he got destroyed on Meet the Press, when you hear him speak about foreign policy, you know that's the fucking guy. If you guys don't know, Anthony Blinken has been Joe Biden's foreign policy advisor for 25 years. They set up a Senate Foreign Council commission to look into the Iraq war, and he was like, we're going to examine the Republicans' lies about this war. But it was actually a front to manufacture consent towards the war, because Joe Biden said, hey, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to look at what George Bush is saying, but he like, I'm going to bring the general on that support the Iraq war. I'm going to bring this guy on who support the Iraq war. And then at the end of the commission, they say, oh, based on our findings, George W. Bush and the Republicans had good reason to invade Iraq. And then he goes around and lies about it to this day and said, I was opposing George Bush. No, Joe Biden with Anthony Blinken played a very crucial role in justifying the Iraq war with him being head of the Senate Arms Committee. You guys understand? That guy has been with Joe Biden for 25 years at least. That guy is the commander-in-chief. You guys understand? It's not Joe Biden. This guy is a puppet in a suit. Once again, Kamala Harris not qualified enough to do that. Anyone know Reagan? Another puppet in a suit. But this is the biggest, most obvious example since Bush Jr., right? Barack Obama was a puppet. He was really good because he could take their coaching and direction and add charisma to it. Golden. Perfect. But they would deal with it, Biden. They can deal with it. This is just hide them every once in a while. And they get someone like Barack Obama. That's just an extra. That's just a bonus to what they can accomplish. But that's all I have on this segment. Once again, this is a super short segment. I'm gonna get ready. I have my show tomorrow. I'm gonna pass to you. I don't know if you have any other stories.
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna shout out Rome. I don't know if you heard. Rome is gonna be on the Jimmy Dore show tonight, promoting the RBN library. Oh, I thought he said tonight. Maybe he said a different name.
Yeah.
No, tonight. He said tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah, he'll be there tonight.
I know he mentioned it. I don't know when he said. Let me make sure. That's fire.
Oh,
He
no,
said I'll be
soon.
on
I'm
your
sorry,
show
not tonight.
soon.
He said soon.
Yeah.
He said soon. My bad. Soon.
Yeah. So that's gonna be fire though.
Yeah. So yeah, he said Jimmy Dore DM'd him because Rome had shouted him out about donating about the library, and then he followed him several days later. Now he DM'd him. He's gonna go on. He's trying to raise money for this library. This is great because he needs a lot of money really for this library. So Jimmy Dore is the venue that can actually
And how many
bring in that amount. Go ahead.
How many of the independent media people out here are buying Rome on the libraries? TYT doing it? And Majority Reporters doing it? Just saying. We know the people who have the back of activists, who had Misty on to support the Join the Sound rally. Not Cenk Uygur, it was Jimmy. Who had Sabi on to promote her women's summit? It was Jimmy. He had us on to promote the General Strike Summit. So he promoted like this. That if you promoting rallies and actions, you're on our side. If you are ignoring, not attending, or smearing these actions, you are not. This is very simple to understand, guys. It's not hard. It's really not hard. Anyway.
So if we would have listened to people back when we were FHL, even before that, including some former members, we should have discontinued being allies with Jimmy. So now that Jimmy could possibly literally bring in a couple of tens of $1,000s for this library to get off the ground, that's going to help the community. Let's just give that up. That's what we're supposed to do? It's completely unserious. It's so unserious, the dynamic that he is about to bring him on the show and talk about a community library. You know how Rome going to get on there. He can't do nothing but be authentic. He going to be authentic, and when he's authentic, people love him. He going to talk about this library, raise some funds for this library, doing the work by hand, getting volunteers. But TYT and everybody's talking about Jimmy Dore is a problem. Like, it's just not serious. It's so unserious to me. Yeah,
and you mentioned it before, but there are people who did not have our best interests at heart. This is really, they don't have the workers' best interests at heart. They are so online. They have Jimmy Dore derangement syndrome. They just want the people. They want activists to cancel other activists. I canceled TYT and Emma because where the fuck is Emma on the streets? You know what I mean? Jimmy gave a speech at the March for Medicare for All. He gave a speech at that last anti-war rally, and he hosts actions. Why would you cancel someone who's supporting action? That doesn't make sense to me. There's political disagreements, but are you actually showing up? Are you actually making a difference? And 90% of the booty left media, and these are the people we call out, are not showing up. They don't show up. They don't promote events. They didn't promote Worker Strike Back. Jimmy had Shama on. To promote Worker Strike Back. How many people did? So that's where my politics is. I don't care about the overall. I don't care about the online drama. I don't care about all this stupid, irrelevant shit that people bring up. Are you supporting actions or not? And if you are an ally of RBN, which is why Worker Strike Back and many people are. That's just where we stand. But I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Unless you have anything else to add. Remember,
that's it.
They'll rather be joining us tomorrow, and then I'll probably take Saturday and Sunday off just heads up CJ because I think that'd be a good way to end the week for me. And I'll pass to you, CJ. That's all I have coming up. Make sure you guys subscribe. And also, I think Sabi and JB coming on.
Yeah, they're coming up in about 15 minutes. Yeah.
So we got more content for you guys. So stay tuned. I'll pass to you, CJ. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll end with this bad faith appearance that we made on. I'm sorry, the RBN made on bad faith. Our appearance. Here's a short snippet of our appearance. Thank you for watching. Let me make sure here. As it plays, I will toss up some of your comments as I see that there is a ton. So thank you for watching. And here is our appearance on bad faith.
Because I want you guys to understand, that is a theory of change they are not representing. By having and engaging with Jones Strikes, I know that was the main question, engaging with Jones Strikes with combination of third parties plus mutual aid, this is how you create change. This is an effective strategy that the inside game, once again, I cannot stress enough, abandoned. So I was all for these progressives that are willing to challenge the Democratic Party establishment if they was willing to work with this outside mutual aid game. They are not. They ain't showing to Rome's Tour for the Poor. They're not helping us feed the homeless. They're not showing up to anti-war rallies. So if you don't want to join us, fine. We do our own stuff. We need to build our own movement. It's not going to happen with the 2-year election cycle they brainwashed us to focus on. Just focus on 2 years. And my last point I want to make, they will call us a nihilist because we don't believe in supporting this failed strategy of supporting the Democrat Party. Bree, what is the biggest nihilists are the people who lose an election. And then they say, oh, woe is me. We're screwed. Donald Trump won. We're all going to die. That's the biggest nihilist. When Trump won, I'm like, okay, let's organize. Joe Biden won, let's organize. Because that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I am torn a little bit about this because I do want to say that I respect enormously what folks like David Stewart have done in this space, because but for a lot of their research and knowledge of how things actually work,